we have an app that will have the complete history. You don't have to get them out now. It has a complete history of what we are doing. So what we're giving you today is just a brief bio of what we did, because in the past people we didn't have enough time to give you everything that we were trying to do. So this is just a brief bio, but our app gives you the complete bio of what we know, not about what they do, okay? There should be a picture and a picture of their marker also. So I'm gonna let them get started, and we're gonna walk along, and as you go, you should see a Texas flag of where they're buried, okay? So you don't have to walk into the cemetery, you should be able to see them from the road, okay? Just right here and just talk about it.
Okay. This first one that has this first Texas flag to your right, that is Benjamin Taliaferro Ware. He was a young boy during Union General Williams Tecumseh Sherman's 1864 march through Georgia, which destroyed many civilian targets. Ware, son of Benjamin and Mary Jan Ware, was born November 10, 1853 in Rome. After the Civil War, teenaged Ware moved with his family to Texas, settling near Dallas. Before he was 21, he and his brother Charles opened up a store in what became Brown County and opened up a similar operation in Colorado City. Both stores became important supply centers for ranching outfits, such as the J.A. Ranch. In 1879, Ware married Mary Hooper, also from Georgia, and had 4 children. Ware brought the MK and Cross C ranches in Borden County, running as many as 45,000 cattle. BT became VP of First National Bank of Amarillo in 1895. In 1909, Ware gained control of Amarillo National Bank and merged with Western Bank and Trust. Amarillo National Bank has been continuously owned by the Ware family since. He served as president of A&B for the rest of his life. And the next one is Ware.
And the one to the further back is Wesley Izzard, distinguished himself 50 years of radio and newspaper journalism following in the footsteps of the legendary Gene Howard. Izzard was born in 1900s in Chicago. He served in the Army during World War I, then attended University of Illinois, majoring in English. Izzard married Helen Easterday. The couple had 2 children. In 1924, Izzard moved to Amarillo and joined the staff of Amarillo Globe. Izzard parlayed his experience in newspapers into a stimulus job in radio, giving his first newscast on Amarillo's first radio station, WDAG. In 1928, in his lifetime, he did 10,000 editions of his afternoon newscast and 7,800 editions of his evening program. Izzard reported extensively on World War II in his writing and radio broadcast, including reports on his son Bob, who was shot down over France shortly after the Normandy invasion. This was presumed dead for 100 days. In 1949, he made a 6-month tour of Europe, where he met French resistance fighters who helped rescue his son.
Ladies, that's so interesting.
Jack B. Kelly parlayed his $500 separation pay from the Navy into a conglomerate of corporations doing business on a global scale. Born in 1916 in Sherman, he moved to Amarillo in 1925. He married Hazel Donovan, who I believe is right next to him, in 1936. Working as a truck driver in 1946, Kelly sold helium as a hobby while simultaneously operating Kelly Implement in Springfield, Colorado. Helium would eventually secure his future and fortune. In 1960, shortly after the birth of the space program, Kelly saw the growing helium demand, spurred mostly from NASA's need for the gas. He started manufacturing his own tube trailers. He patented his design, and by the 1970s, he was manufacturing 95% of the tube trailers in the U.S. In 1961, he obtained the first Interstate Commerce Commission authority to transport helium. By the late 1960s, he was operating 7 companies related to the compressed gas industry. Kelly also held extensive oil and gas interests. Kelly is a World War II veteran. And now we're going to talk about Hazel Donovan, who is his wife.
Hazel Donovan Kelly Wilson. Every once in a while, there exists an individual who gently reminds us of the passions of life. That individual empowers us every day to breathe deeply and remember, relive, appreciate, and experience the greatness of everyday miracles. Hazel Kelly Wilson was such an individual. Beginning in a little one-room schoolhouse outside Amarillo, this distinguished Texas matriarch went on to be recognized as a member of the Amarillo High School Hall of Fame in 1988 and attended classes at Amarillo College and at West Texas State University. Was rewarded Amarillo Globe News Woman of the Year 1991 and received an honorary doctorate of philosophy and humanities from West Texas A&M in 1994. She was a lady so dynamic that it was impossible to stand in her company and not develop a sense of better character and faith. Prized among her awards is the Employee Circle of Excellence Award she received in 1998 from her employees at Joby Kelly Incorporated.
And if you want to take pictures, you're more than welcome to as well. And we're going to start making our way to the next one. This here is the administration building, which we are fixing to talk about as well. Beginning in 1933, a beautification project for Llano Cemetery was carried out by hundreds of reconstruction finance workers. The RFC was created in 1932 by the Hoover administration to help economic recovery during the Depression. Some of the things done during the project were the laying out of new roads throughout the cemetery, adding curbs and gutters to all main roads, excavating a lagoon with an island and building a rustic bridge to connect the island with the main grounds of the cemetery. The administration building, along with other structures, was built of brick from the old Potter County Courthouse that was torn down in 1932 when the new courthouse was rebuilt. Okay. And this is John DeCourcy Harrington's gravesite as well. You can see the flag right over there, so you're more than welcome to take pictures while we talk as well. He was a legendary oil man and investor, used his considerable wealth to benefit a legion of humanitarian causes in the Panhandle. Born in Edinburgh, Illinois, and studied engineering, Harrington began his oil career with Standard Oil Company of New Jersey. A position with Marland Oil moved him westward eventually in 1926 to the Panhandle oil fields and Amarillo, which would remain Harrington headquarters. He formed a partnership with Lawrence Hagee in 1927. Stanley Marsh Jr. joined the firm a year later. The trio formed an unmatched team in the field of oil and gas production. He married Sybil Buckingham in 1935. Harrington later added sizable ranch holdings and investment firm to his portfolio. The Don and Sybil Harrington Foundation, established in 1951, would eventually give millions of dollars to Amarillo and the area in support of a myriad of concerns. Wildcatter fever never left Harrington. He remained active in the oil industry for more than half a century. And Sybil Buckingham Harrington is buried here too.
Okay. Sybil Buckingham Harrington was also buried here. And she is a native of Amarillo. She was the granddaughter of Amarillo pioneers, Mr. and Mrs. J.E. Hughes, and the daughter of late Frank and Roxy Buckingham. She shared her wealth not only with Amarillo causes, but also with others throughout the nation. Ms. Harrington donated a portion of the collection to the Phoenix Museum of Art. Her historic home at 1600 S. Polk now operates as a house museum. She supported all facets of the visual and performing arts with her gifts, including support for the Amarillo Symphony and the Lone Star Ballet production of The Nutcracker every Christmas, and production of the musical drama Texas and Palo Duro Canyon. She funded $1.2 million in scholarships at West Texas A&M University. The Board of Regents dedicated the Sybil Be Harrington School of Arts and Humanities on the Canyon campus in 1989 to honor her. The Harrington name became synonymous I can't say that. With every successful charitable and cultural endeavor throughout the Texas Panhandle.
And that location where her house was, that's now a museum, is 1600 South Polk, just in case any of you were curious and want to visit.
They own that whole island out there, so nobody else can be buried out there.
Wow.
You might want to keep to your left, just to let these cars go.
Okay, so right over here where the big United States flag is, and then kind of where this first Texas flag is, that is where our 4 chaplains are buried. The 4 chaplains, it was World War II, and the U.S. Army troop ship Dorchester had just left New York on January 23, 1943, en route to Greenland, carrying 900 soldiers, seamen, and 4 chaplains: Reverend George L. Fox, Rabbi Alexander D. Good, and Reverend John P. Washington, and Reverend Clark V. Poling. In the early morning hours of February 3, 1943, the Dorchester was torpedoed by a German submarine in the frigid North Atlantic. Panic set in among the men, many trapped below decks in the dark. The chaplains sought to calm the men and organize an orderly evacuation of the ship. The supply of life jackets ran out before each man had one. The chaplains removed their own life jackets and gave them to others. They helped as many men as they could get into the lifeboats and then linked arms, saying prayers and singing hymns, and went down with the ship. Survivor U.S. Seaman Grady Clark had this to say: "The last thing I saw of them were the 4 chaplains up there praying for the safety of the men." And again, you're more than welcome to take pictures or take your time kind of viewing it if you would like.
Here to my right is Elizabeth Bivens Childers. She was also known as Betty. She was a longtime Amarillo civic leader and member of a pioneer family who made her mark particularly in the arts community as a founder of the Amarillo Art Center. Childers was the daughter of Miles Bivens and granddaughter of Lee Bivens, the Sherman, Texas pioneer who at one time was thought to have owned more land than any man in the United States, according to the Globe News files. Childers served as a vice chairman of the board of the Mary E. Bivens Foundation and as a member of the Amarillo Art Center Board of Directors. She was a leading force in the creation of Art Center, now known as the Amarillo Museum of Art. At the museum on campus of Amarillo College, a plaque quoting Childers reads, "The goal of Amarillo Art Association is to fill a known need for cultural enrichment in our arts by encouraging active participation and understanding of art in all its phases."
Okay, so now we're going to talk about this particular area right here. That is Alison Meredith. So most of you may have visited the Lake Meredith, where we get most of our water supply, which that is the lake that was actually named after him. So Alison Meredith was called Double A by his friends and was best known as the father of the Canadian River Dam and its complex aqueduct system that brings water to many Panhandle and South Plains cities. Although Meredith did not live to see the job completed, the Borgers City Commission petitioned the Texas House and Senate in 1963 to propose to the Bureau of Reclamation that the Canadian River Reservoir be named after him. Meredith was secretary of the Canadian River Municipal Water Authority from 1952 until his death. U.S. Representative Walter Rogers of Pampa sponsored the bill that would give the name Meredith to the lake formed by the Canadian River Dam, and the bill passed in 1965. In 1941, he took over the administrative reins of the bankrupt boomtown of Borger. During his tenure as city manager on June 17, 1949, the Canadian River Water Users Association was formed by representatives of 11 cities. He resigned in 1952 as city manager to work full-time on the Canadian River Dam project.
Virgil Patterson is here to my right. He made his mark in the Texas Panhandle as a banker, community leader, and a major force in the development of Cal Farley's Boys Ranch. He had been president of Boys Ranch since 1967, assuming leadership a month after ranch founder Cal Farley died. He graduated from SMU in 1982 and took a job with the Federal Reserve Bank in Los Angeles. On October 29, 1929, he accepted a job as Assistant National Bank Examiner. He achieved full National Bank Examiner status in 1933. In 1936, Patterson became VP of American National Bank in Austin. 7 years later, he teamed with David Reed to raise enough money to buy a bank in Amarillo. In 1943, Patterson walked through the door of First National Bank of Amarillo with total deposits of $18 million. The first night he was made president of the bank. After his retirement, Patterson remained F&B chairman until 1975 when he became an advisory director. He chaired up a group that raised $6 million to build High Plains Baptist Hospital.
Now we'll go to this one to our right. And this one right up here is Alexander Gene Howe.
He's right here if y'all want to come on.
Yes. If any of you have read The Taxless Texan, he actually wrote those columns, and he also is responsible for our first television show aired in Amarillo. So Gene Howe is still recognized in Amarillo thanks to the years he dominated the local journalism scene in his nationally recognized column, The Taxless Texan. Howe was the son of newspaper publisher E.W. Ed Howe, who founded the Atchison, Kansas Globe. Howe quit high school and went to work for his father in the Globe's print shop. He left the Globe at age 16 to work with his brother James at a newspaper in Idaho. He moved on to an Oregon newspaper where he remained until 1907 when he returned to Atchison. 4 years later, his father offered control of the Globe if he could raise the money to buy it quickly. Within 2 days, he raised the money and bought the newspaper. In 1924, Howe moved to Amarillo and established what is now the Amarillo Globe News. In 1951, he opened Amarillo's first television station. His motto was inscribed over the entrance to the AGN building: "A newspaper may be forgiven for lack of wisdom, but never for lack of courage." We're going to move right down here to our right now.
Here to my left is Catherine Kirk Wilson. She was a longtime civic leader and the first woman elected to the Amarillo City Commission. She was born in Amarillo to R. Dean and Willie Kirk, a pioneer family. Wilson graduated from Amarillo High School, which inducted her into her first Sandy Hall of Fame in 1975. She attended Randolph-Macon University in Virginia and graduated from the University of Texas with a business degree in 1934. At UT, she was president of Kappa Alpha Theta sorority. She met Horace Wilson at university, a law school student who she later married. Early on, she devoted herself to public service. In 1964 Globe News editorial, she admonished readers to give to charity. Do we care what happens to our fellow citizens who may need help or sympathetic counseling? How much we care is shown by how much we share. In 1972, she became the first woman to be elected president of the Amarillo Area Foundation and also was the first woman to serve as a moderator of the Palo Duro Union Presbytery.
Actually, we can move it down. Okay, and this is our last young man that we are going to talk about for our founders tour. He was a really phenomenal man. He was probably one of my favorites on this tour. Dr. Joseph R. Latson was inspired by his father, Dr. Harvey Latson, an Amarillo cardiologist, to pursue a career in medicine. Latson graduated with honors from Baylor College of Medicine in 1953. As a visiting professor at Johns Hopkins Hospital, he worked with Dr. Helen Tassig, founder of pediatric cardiology. An authority on congenital heart disease, he worked as a clinical instructor in pediatric cardiology at Baylor and served as chief of the cardiac catheterization laboratory at Texas Children's Hospital. He worked with catheter manufacturers who had primarily been making urologic catheters to design a heart catheter. In 1955, Latson worked with Dr. Denton Cooley of Houston in developing the heart-lung machine, which enabled doctors to perform open heart surgeries. Latson was internationally known for his efforts in cardiac research and was asked to organize a cardiac laboratory in London. The last 15 years of his life, he was working with children with congenital heart disease. And he's right over here, for those of you who may not have seen, straight ahead.
Why is he your favorite?
Because my dad works with pacemakers and he has patients that he keeps up with, so it's a little bit more relevant for me. I mean, the rest of them were very great.
Hope you enjoyed.